Hey, geeks of the Roundtable. This is Reggie. In the next video, we're going to be discussing Conan as a character, Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer, the Adventurer. Subscribe below and put your comments below. All right, so Conan the Barbarian.
I remember as a kid reading the extra wide Conan comic type of video. I only had one of them, but I think it was probably one of the first starting comics that I got as a kid type of idea. Minus the Hulk, I had a Hulk one as well. But the extra wide magazine, if you will, comic. And then got into the movies with Arnold.
Yeah, with Arnold.
Arnold.
Yeah.
Trying to think of a classic line from the first movies and all the.
He doesn't speak for the first 45 minutes of the movie. Like he's a kid and then he
just cries in agony. That's all.
Just like like it basically pain sounds.
And his lack of language skills then, obviously being a recent immigrant as well, his language ability, English speaking and stuff was down as well, right?
Yeah.
Is there any real catch line out of that movie? There's no "I'll be back." No. There's no iconic line, is there?
No, it's basically
Come with me if you want to live.
It's basically the adaptation, the first adaptation of Conan the Barbarian character, the Sumerian.
Yeah.
From
he wasn't that known when he made the movie. He wasn't.
Who? Arnold Schwarzenegger? No.
Not as a movie star. At least.
No, I don't.
No.
I think it came right after the Terminator. I think he did the Terminator and then he does Conan the Barbarian
Maybe
right after.
Could be the opposite.
Because no, I think it. I think
Can we get our fact checker on this one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we get our fact checker?
But yeah.
So either way, he doesn't speak for the first 45 minutes of the movie.
Yes.
It's basically the story of him from being a kid and the riddle of steel, which is the basis of the comic book character, and then they kind of go from there into him being enslaved and then being trained, and a whole bunch of spoilers right there because you've never seen it.
So what's the comic book like then? If there's no dialect in it?
In the comic book, there is dialect. Like he is a barbarian who, in the Age of Steel, became king by his own hand. But it's also the adventures. Like he's more like an adventurer. So he's not this lumbering barbarian kind of kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because even in introduction of the movie, it does have different sequences in it of the story where you have a complete, story. By the end of it, you can understand where the character's motivations are, where he's coming from, and how he was raised. The intervention of Tulsa Doom as a villain, he's the main villain in the comic book as a sorcerer, played by James Earl Jones, which is like just amazing without having to be constricted with the whole Darth Vader thing.
Yes.
Him as a villain is really, really good. He's really good in the movie. And
those special effects when he turns into the snake.
Yeah,
and
the special effects. It's one of those movies from the 80s that you watch. Yeah, it's an 80s movie. Filmed in, I think they filmed it in Italy because I think it's similar to when they did Clint Eastwood, The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Those ones are filmed in Italy, like spaghetti westerns.
Yeah.
So I think they filmed this in Italy. And fact check. And but the characters that they the characters they have in them are very iconic. They're also having an actor like James Earl Jones.
And this was Conan the Barbarian.
The first one is the Barbarian.
Barbarian, right?
The Barbarian. Yeah.
And the second one is the Conqueror.
No, the Destroyer.
Destroyer.
Yeah, the Destroyer.
Is that as good a representation?
It's basically like a continuation of the story because they have Grace Jones in it.
Yes.
Wood Chamberlain is in it.
Yeah.
Which they have him in the story.
Protecting the princess.
Yeah, protecting the princess and her virginity. So they have this whole adventure story of it. Yeah, it's like not just Viking story, but it's very. It reminded me a lot about. I don't know if you remember in the 80s, there was this game called Ultima. It's like an RPG game, and you had a tower where you had to kind of go up into stages, and they had a barbarian, they had a woman, kind of like Red Sonja, which is part of that kind of
exactly.
kind of that universe also. They have a dwarf. They have a wizard. So they have all these. It's like a
basically all those ancient time stereotypes.
Yeah, it's something that when you look at Conan the Barbarian as a movie, it gives you that same sentiment as like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
Like fantasy, role playing kind of games.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yep.
Well, do you remember the arcade game Golden Axe?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's
Gauntlet,
what it's
Golden Axe.
Gauntlet and Ultima are pretty much the same vein.
Exactly.
Whereas like when you watch this movie, it's kind of the same thing. Like when you're going through stages like an RPG game, but just the effects in it aren't overdone.
No,
There's
because it wasn't. They didn't have
crazy
exactly.
stuff.
It wasn't a huge. Well, I wouldn't say it was the biggest budget film for that time by any means, and the technology isn't obviously what it is today. As it was with Jason Momoa's Conan. Which eventually evolved into. I tend to think I like the originals more than his. His was just all right, but
So once you made it just all right, then was it the story?
Well, I don't know. So that's what I was saying. I don't know. Is it just all right because of the fact that I'm so biased to the original Arnold? Coming back to the same thing about Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That same conversation. But just because Arnold and the classic ones and stuff like that, and maybe I would have been into it if it would have wowed me. But it was just another story in that series, if you will, but just a different guy doing the character.
It's difficult because they did it as a remake.
Yeah.
Kind of instead of just continuing the story. I think that it's a mistake. You take Mad Max for example, Fury Road. It's such a great, it's an amazing movie, but in itself, it just goes into adding to the story of what's going on.
Yeah.
I think it's an error to look at certain movies like Conan the Barbarian and these 80s movies. Ghostbusters was a good example where you're remaking the movie. You're not taking you're not taking
Ghostbusters.
Wow.
It's one of those things that like it's Conan's version with Momoa is not bad.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just not up to par with something that had been done before.
Because
Exactly.
to do those kind of stories, like barbarian stories, right now we're in like a SJW war. In barbarian times, it's rape, there's all of that stuff that actually the original comic book stories of Conan had lots of.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely.
So now if you do a movie like that, people will be like, what? Like that's the same thing that happened with Fury Road.
Maybe they need an R-rated version.
Well, they had the same problem. They had the same problem with not the same problem, but the same situation with another Arnold movie, Predator, where Jesse Ventura says like the derogatory term, like a homophobic term.
Yeah.
And it's just sad. Like you look at that era and you're kind of like, okay, in the context of it, of what you're saying, it's fine because of when the movie was made.
Military.
It's military. They're in the jungle. They're in that sense, right?
I don't know if
it's like smoking back in the day. They had all this smoking in the movies, right?
Yeah.
That's my point. That I'm not even sure if Conan was originally a book or a comic book, but originally Conan is not politically correct at all.
Well, he's a barbarian. There's
a
the one where he goes back in time in the comic books, where he has that cover with the gun. He has a magnum gun, like he's pointing there with a gun, which
Conan.
is exactly Conan in the comic books, right? So it's the reflection of that. Like this is it's an era of violence. This is not anything that has to do with moral codes or anything. The guy's just trying to survive. This pure action. So
there's no millennials back then?
No, there were other kinds of millennials.
There's different
1900 millennials.
Different kind of millennials. There's always like they just give it a different name now because there was always people like this.
That's the idea.
But the way that they look at it as a character, he's not centered in any more like moral stance or political stance. It's just this is survival. Wrong. This is survival. I need to survive myself and to get ahead.
But that's the thing that happened with Tarzan. Tarzan is originally a book, Pulp Fiction era, and the original books are. I think, and even the movies
isn't
are
Tarzan
more like
Tarzan is like a criticism of like colonialism.
Colonialism. You can
Right.
take it as that, but you can take it as
I don't know, like that, it has
No,
parts
no,
of that, right?
For
So-
sure, but that's the whole point of making a great story. You know, like okay, there's action. This guy is living in the jungle, but why? What does he do? Is he a human? Does he connect with the other world? In the book, he goes there and then he comes back to the war, and now you have a different dichotomy between the old war and the new war and all that. You know, like and Conan, I think is old school like that. I think they made a movie not too long ago, Young Carter of Mars, no? Young
Carter of Mars, yeah.
Mars.
Okay, but if we're
Young Carter of Mars is the same thing. It's a book from the Pulp Fiction era, and the same thing. It's like not many.
But they
it had great
what they
reviews,
did,
but not many people watched it.
the problem with that movie, the problem with that character exactly is that they make it, you can't, it's not whitewash. It's like you cannot take away the edginess of the character, right? It doesn't work. So with Momoa's portrayal, it's not that they took the edginess away. It was just that it didn't actually live up to what had happened before.
All right, so then we
In
can
our-
talk about
in our
that. About
sense,
you're talking
right.
about whitewashing and stuff like that, and then you can bring up the the animated series from like the early '90s and stuff like that, right?
The Disney one? Disney one?
Sure. I don't know who
It's-
created it.
I
I
don't
remember
know who
watching
created
it. That's
Yeah,
all.
It's called,
I just
it's
remember
like
watching
Conan
it.
the Adventures or something.
Right. You know
Oh,
what
the
I
Conan
mean?
Adventure. I was thinking about Tarzan. But all right.
Yeah,
Okay,
Conan.
okay.
Yes, exactly. And it was good. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, it was written for kids and stuff like that because it was on at that time and everything, but it was still better than Momoa's Conan.
Yeah,
personally.
it's
But
just-
again, they weren't trying to define how it started. You know what I mean? They just continued on the adventures, on the
Yeah.
story.
But that's
They
what.
just went with it,
Exactly.
right?
And even looking at Red Sonja, like that movie, when you look at Red Sonja as a character, she's part of the universe. But at the same time, they didn't go out of their way to make Arnold Schwarzenegger's character be called Conan in the movie. They didn't bother doing any of that because it was just kind of implied.
Yes,
Like, it was just like,
exactly.
okay, he I'm 100% sure they had a different name, but the way the dynamic worked was that it was kind of like a continuation of that kind of thing. Well, Brigitte Nielsen, how do you say her?
Brigitte Nielsen.
Brigitte Nielsen.
Back when she was young.
So yeah, maybe we need a new Conan story type of deal, continuation of the story. Go with a like the Deadpool, Wolverine R rating type thing. Get back to the pillaging and the conquering and the
I would say so.
They have
Just tell everybody.
the physical
The movie has a lot-
molestation of things.
the movie has a lot of gratuitous sex scenes, like a lot of nudity.
Yeah.
It has a lot of obviously a lot of violence, a lot of gore.
But don't you
Game
think?
of Thrones that shit, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
don't you think that the movies, going into a movie theater, that they have to water it down nowadays? Otherwise, it's just not acceptable in the theaters.
Right? They don't have to, but they do it because they want to make more money off it.
Right, like they
Well,
don't
I
want
don't
to
know.
limit their crowd, so they water it down a little bit.
They did. The problem is that they did that. That wasn't a good example of that is Judge Dredd as a character. Judge Dredd was
Wait,
done.
just Dread the 95 or Dread the last?
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like they did 95 with Sylvester Stallone. The movie sucked. It was horrible as a character.
It was,
Like,
it was
they
very
made-
campy. That's
it
the
was
only reason
super
I liked
campy.
it because it was
It's
so
not
campy.
as a
right?
Judge Dredd movie.
Yeah, as
you
a
see it as an
it made
action,
money.
80s
It made
action.
it made money for whatever it was, but as a movie in itself, it was bad.
Yes.
But then you see Carl Urban do Dredd.
That movie's
recently.
amazing.
That
Which
movie's
is way
amazing,
better,
which is an
yes.
imitation
What
of
is
the
amazing?
Raid,
I would say
the
it's a-
original Raid.
It's a
For
modern
North
classic.
American.
I go as far as say it's a modern classic. Dread.
It's a remake. Though.
The 2012?
Oh, that-
Oh, that was
Oh,
a
well,
way
it's
Of
better.
the
remake.
Raid, right? The Raid is the original.
No. It was they filmed it first. Raid came first as a movie, but
I know, that's what I'm
but
saying.
Dread was filmed first. They just matter of months between them.
Yeah.
But none of it.
It's
no movie was
I love the
influenced-
movie. I love
None
the
of
movie.
them were
It just-
influenced by each other. They were
Yeah.
filmed at the same time. It's just the Raid was put out first and Dread. But basically the same story.
Because like if they did a Conan in that respect, kept it not so Hollywoody, kept it a little bit more gritty, a little bit more real, if you will. I would
Honest-
spend money.
honest to the
I'd go
character.
to the theater.
They,
Honest to the
yeah,
character,
you go see it, but it's just they don't do it because the edginess of the character has to be there, and also because they have to be able to have the person who plays this character be able to do it 100%. You know, like Momoa did a great job, but it was just he's not. Is he gonna make another one? Maybe. He didn't have enough support.
He wants to be. No, I wouldn't think he would, and he wants to be too big of a star. Where
he's Aquaman now.
When Arnold did him, he was just doing him to be that character, to be that person. He wasn't trying to use it as a platform to be a star.
Well,
you know what I mean?
He kind of. He
was.
was.
Of course he was, or else he wouldn't be in the movie. Period. Like all movie people are, right? You know what I mean? But he was just doing it because they were like, "Hey, we want to do this." It's not like he was trying to be more. Jason Momoa did that, trying to be more. You know what I mean?
Well, I think because also he has the commitment of making money with Aquaman.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
Especially, it's a greater character.
Well, yeah, he's gone on to bigger and better things than Conan. Let's face it.
But that's the thing, though. That's the mistake. The mistake is that these people who play these characters or these actors, especially in Hollywood and in the formula they do it, it's like, look at what happened with Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel made money like being in Pitch Black, doing Riddick. He does Fast and the Furious. He makes a whole bunch of money. Then he doesn't want to do Riddick anymore. Then there's this whole back and forth between Fast and the Furious after the second one. They do Tokyo Drift because he doesn't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
He's asking for too much money. The guy kind of diminished down in Hollywood stance.
And then he
came back and did it. But he did it. He had to go through like at least 2-3 years where he wasn't like making money as much. And then he comes back to Fast and the Furious.
He was doing other stuff. You know? He's trying to broaden his career.
Yeah, but it wasn't working. So it's the same thing with this.
Well, in Hollywood, but he's still making crazy.
He's in Marvel.
He was still making crazy money. Still making crazy money in China while he wasn't making money in Hollywood because those Fast and the Furious things sell way more in China than.
No, but the thing is 100% that they make money. But him as a actor now made way more money because he has all these different franchises to be able to draw from.
I think he has.
And I think that's what Schwarzenegger did so well. He had all these characters that he didn't abandon.
He
didn't say like, okay, that he did at times allow people to play, in the universe, add something to it. But nobody ever went and played the Terminator.
But you know what?
As a character, his Terminator.
He's doing another one.
I know, exactly. So that's what I'm saying because that's his character. So it's the same thing with Conan. That's his character for even though it's a comic book character and it's owned by other people.
Like this is gonna be a run-down motherfucking robot.
Yeah. So
in other words, he just basically Arnold Schwarzenegger and Vin Diesel basically have the same idea that it's like, okay, this is my niche. I'm a
they're an action
star.
Yeah,
there's many actors, including Sylvester Stallone for a while, that wanted to be recognized as dramatic motherfuckers. So they did comedy, they did some other drama.
Yeah.
Now Arnold Schwarzenegger and some other ones. For example, one of my favorite action stars. I don't know who's the guy with no hair. He did that.
Transporter?
He did Transporter, yeah.
Oh, Jason Statham.
That guy does action movies. He also does drama and comedy, but he doesn't look for them. They just look for him. And now he's in the niche of making action movies with drama in it.
Yeah, or comedy.
Comedy.
Look at Snitch,
he started with Snatch.
Yeah, exactly. No, those.
Well, he started with Snatch too, right? Like.
Sorry, Snatch.
Snatch and he did the Mean Machine, the Nine-Hole Jazz or something like that. But the soccer version he did, like that was in the 90s.
Is he in Lockstock?
And that was comedy, no? That was comedy.
No, I don't think he's in Lockstock.
Fact check.
Yeah.
So.
But.
Is he?
Oh, there we go.
There you go. Yeah.
Thank you for
so he has those crime noir.
Yeah.
British comedy stuff.
And then he did Parker, and I didn't know, but it's based on the books, and the books are amazing.
Revolver,
yeah.
Parker's that's a horrible movie.
I mean, it didn't come out as the book, but it's a good movie if you see it as an action movie. Like, it's an action movie. And
Jennifer Lopez is in it, but she takes over every movie, so I think that's what happened.
But that's the whole thing. The idea of bringing action, more gravitas and more power to action movies, bringing drama, bringing comedy. I think action movies have changed, and Conan is a good example of what could be. Or Vin Diesel is, to me, what we were talking before, Bloodshot, the Valiant movies, and these guys want to bring Vin Diesel because he has the face, is recognizable around the world, and even though he's an action movie, he also can, in some movies, expand himself a little. He's been Netflix has a bunch of movies that he's done, action movies that not many people know, but there's like, or the really movies, or Last Witch Hunter. There's one called Last Witch Hunter.
It's on Netflix now.
Yeah. Well,
No,
it's
they did
different.
I'm stealing my friends.
It's like I said,
you
it's
know?
something that Conan to me is great because of the way the comic book source and then going back into the movie, they did a great job. Like the Tulsa Doom character for GreensoulsSoul was great. Yeah,
The 80s is still the best version.
And they did it's a great version because he had, they worked around the fact that the guy had limited acting skills, so they did give him rich characters to deal with.
And that's the thing.
Having
Good
Grace
villain,
Jones,
a great
having great
villain,
villains, having great support characters.
Great stories.
That's really important, and it's great. Star power is good.
And I still think they're sitting on some stuff there. I just don't think they should redo it again. I just think they should just come in and be like, this is the character.
Do a Netflix
and
series, man. Do a Netflix
thing.
That would be a
whatever.
good idea,
That's
but-
fine.
Or
That's great.
one of you continuing the one from
Continue.
the 80s.
Yeah.
It could be the same character, it could be like the son of him or whatever, I don't care, but continuing the story from the 80s. Like the whole rehashing and story from the start all the time.
I think that's a Hollywood thing now. Though.
Yeah.
They don't want to continue on.
yeah.
They want to retell their version of that story.
Yeah. Okay.
So let us know in the comments below, is Conan the best comic book adaptation into movie? And if not, let us know what you think. Thanks for watching Geeks of the Roundtable.
Slave, barbarian, warrior, thief, Conan.
They said you'd come.